Hello, and welcome back to another episode for the Project Seed Money podcast. My name is Sharissa Bradley, and I am your host. And I'm so excited today to be joined with editor Melissa Rudder. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for spending a little time with me.
I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, it's absolutely my pleasure. I loved meeting you at the Women in Publishing Summit. We got to connect there a little tiny bit, but I'm excited to just dive into your process and help as many authors as we possibly can with this editing piece, because it seems to be the area that we have the most questions that come up. And there's so much confusion from a consumer standpoint about the different facets and the different timing and the different names when it comes to hiring an editor, things like developmental and proofread. And I'm hoping through this process, we can kind of crack into that a little tiny bit. And let's just jump right in by, I'd like to know, how did you get started in the editing field?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in how people make sense of the world with stories. I majored in English and history and then proceeded to get my master's in English. And then I taught high school English for 18 years. And I absolutely loved it. Like, there's something so special about sitting in a circle with teenagers and talking about books and then helping them develop their voice as writers. And when I decided I needed to leave the classroom to have more flexibility for my family, I was giving myself pep talks. I was like, it's good. You had your dream job and now you changing your priorities. You'll just get a job to make some money and that's okay. And then I dared to dream that I could be an editor. And I threw myself into it. So I earned my copy editing certificate and read as many books that I could find on craft of editing and writing and did webinars and classes. And it has been so wonderful. I kind of thought my professional life, like with my fulfilling professional life, was over. And now with editing, I'm still able to connect with people, play with words, help individuals achieve their dreams. And I feel so lucky. It's been a wonderful transition. Well, it was a wonderful transition.
It sounds incredible. And I'm obviously picking up that you are a reader and that you've always loved story. The way that you say sitting in circle with teenagers talking about books, and it like that warms my heart. I absolutely love there's all these facets to the words and the worlds that we create in stories. And so to be able to share that with just the blossoming mind of the youth, I think that is so beautiful and such a cool way to get started. As a side question, do you edit things for that like for that group, like YA type books too?
I have not, but I'm interested. I have edited curriculum, which has been fun, but I have not yet edited things directed at teens or young adult readers. But it's a field that I think it's very specialized work. So I would want to do my thing and obsessively study it before I took on a project like that.
Yeah, and that's just my curiosity peaking, because you have such an interesting connection to that population
Mhm.
that I feel like you would just naturally be able to connect with those stories for those readers. But that leads me to ask, what genres specifically then do you focus on? And also, are there genres that you just absolutely won't do?
Yeah, I do edit fairly widely. I like working with fiction and nonfiction. I would say that with nonfiction, I particularly like works that are narrative or deal with humanities, social sciences. I love memoir because memoir is like the happy medium in between that's so beautiful. You get to deal with all the story stuff. As far as what I wouldn't edit, I get scared very easily. So I stay away from horror, true crime, even some thrillers. I don't want to get so distracted by the material that I'm not able to do a good job. And I also, in the projects I choose, I try to choose projects that promote social justice. So I would certainly not want to edit anything that perpetuates systems of oppression. But otherwise, I love reading widely, so it's been hard for me to find a niche that I can stick to because I'm so interested in everything.
It's fine. That's such a green flag too, because there are things that you're saying you won't do, like horror, and I think that that's valuable to know your skill set, not just your skill set, but like your mental skill set, right? Like,
Yes,
oh, I don't
exactly.
like being scared, so I won't do it. Same for me. Like, I would never be able to beta read for horror books or anything like that because it's not the genres that I just don't. Me too, you know.
Yeah.
So then once you if people are like, I'm wondering, like, when people are kind of looking for their editors, this is, like I was saying kind of in the intro, it's kind of tricky because there's so many different facets. And depending where you are in your manuscript journey, you might need something different. Like if you're still
Yes.
writing, you might need developmental support, some things like that. So I wonder, can you please tell me about your onboarding process with clients, what types of editing you do, and then when they should be reaching out to you during that process so that they can kind of mentally plan for their like calendar.
Absolutely. I do a pretty wide range. So I do developmental editing, line editing, and copy editing, which I feel like are the progression, right? In a perfect world where you have all the income and all the time, you would start with developmental editing, which is going to address big picture elements, how you're connecting with your target audience, the cohesion, your structure, your pacing of your overall plot. And then you'd move to line editing, which is going to deal with sentence level style issues. In nonfiction, sometimes that's thinking about persuasiveness and rhetoric. In fiction, a lot of that has to do with pacing, engaging your reader in the story through dialogue, how you're interacting with the setting and things like that, but on a sentence level. And then copy editing would be the final step before more steps that is going to look at kind of mechanical consistency, grammar issues, but also that you're adhering to whatever style manual you want to use, that you're consistent in character presentation, word use, capitalization, and things like that. So that means that there would be different points with your manuscript to reach out to an editor. I would say that it's always best practice to feel pretty great about your manuscript when you're passing it off, right? The better your manuscript is in whatever step it's at, when you hand it to the editor, the more they'll be able to elevate it with their work. However, I also think that developmental editing, the earliest stage, invites readers who are stuck. Like, I have my outline, or I know I want to compile these series of moments and I have some of them written, but I want someone to help me figure out the cohesion and the glue and how to bring these together. So for developmental editing, it's possible that you'd reach out when you have some writing, but not all of it. And even if you have your full manuscript for developmental editing, you might anticipate that you don't, because your editor may say, oh, I really want to hear more about this. Or actually, I think it might be stronger to start your story later here, or something like that. But I would recommend reaching out for developmental editing if you're at that place where you're stuck, or if you have a finished manuscript. You may have had beta readers, you may have worked with a writing group, but you're ready for someone to really dig in and help you think about the core of your manuscript. With line editing and copy editing, that would be if you're feeling very confident in those areas because you've done that work and you're ready for more of the sentence level or grammatical polish.
Amazing. And then do you is I actually am still like lost on the terms and I feel like I get like confused on it because not everybody says it the same exact way either. Like
Absolutely not.
right, I get confused by that. So that last one that you mentioned, is that proofreading or is proofreading, because I know proofreading comes like after you have it in the typeset and they're checking for other things as well. Is that proofreading or is that something separate? And then do you do that too?
So, proofreading in an ideal world is after copy editing and design, when you have the actual proofs of how the manuscript's going to look. And proofreading is the final safeguard, with hopefully they'll catch anything that passed the copy editor in terms of grammar, but they're also checking page numbers, that your footnotes are where they should be if you have them, and things like that. So it's the final check if you're doing all the steps. I have done proofreading. I enjoy it because you're getting such a polished thing. It feels more like you're reading a finished book. You're seeing it on the pages, and it's so great to find something and think, yes, I helped them with this. No one's going to catch that mistake when they're reading. But it's not a service that I advertise on my website, but I have done it and enjoy it. So that would be even later. And as you know, authors are self-publishing with published works, a lot of times these steps end up getting merged, and for budget reasons, authors may have their proofreading round be they and their partner are each reading the book out loud to do a final check because that's what makes sense for their budget. And that happens, although professional proofreaders also have checklists, and we'll dig in deeper if you have the opportunity to work with one.
Yes, I feel like that last little step is that like polishing, right? And like you said, it's in that finished look. So I've often seen in even very professionally done books extra periods, right? Like at
Yes.
the end, and it's like on this own line, or like something got separated where it shouldn't have. And that's where these people are coming in to help. So it almost feels like, to me, like I hope everyone can like save for this. Like it's such a
Yes.
cool step to have. Like you were saying, like no one's gonna catch that mistake because you caught it. And I think that's so cool. So as far as timeline goes, it's obviously going to be different depending on everybody's manuscript because
Mhm.
size varies so much. But
Absolutely.
do you have some sort of estimate as far as like when I contact you to get on your calendar, how long does it take for you to have an opening for me? Like, would I need to be able to reach out to you 3, 4, 5 months before I'm so ready so that we know that we have that time together? Is that your process?
Yes, I think reaching out several months ahead of time is ideal. I personally tend to book about 1 to 4 months in advance, although I'm a planner, so I would be thrilled to get something on the calendar even further in the future. And I know some editors do, right? There are a lot of editors who have their whole year planned out already. And so I would say, and this also goes back to the question of what type of editing you might need. I would say if you feel yourself reaching the point where you are like, I'm almost ready for editing, that's a great time to start talking with editors because they can also help you figure out with your specific manuscript needs and your budget in mind, which route you may want to take in terms of editing. And a lot of editors combine parts of the process or offer deals if you do several types of editing with them as well.
Okay, good tips, because it's not going to be right when you're done, you're going to get an editor right that week. It's going to be a couple of months, and if you can give yourself the time and the space to plan for that, then it's like, okay, I know I got 2 months, 3 months to get this polished, and then it's the nicest thing that has ever happened to me is giving my manuscript to an editor because it feels like a break. You all of a sudden
Yes.
have nothing to do with your book for like weeks. You can't do anything. You can't touch it.
Mhm.
It would be such a waste of time because you're already doing your part. So it feels like this nice little like reprieve, right? And you can plan for that for yourself.
Exactly. And the goal is to find an editor that you feel safe with them holding it. Like you're ready to hand it to them and know that they're going to take care of it so you get that time off. Because then when you get it back, you're going to have lots of decisions to make and some work to do with it. But you'll have guidance of someone who shares in your vision for your project and wants to help make your manuscript the best it can be. So hopefully you won't feel alone in that.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's so true. It's like a little team of two, at
Yes.
that point, and you get the support. And every editor that I've ever talked to has said that people are scared, right? They think that these people are going to critique them or judge them. And everything I've heard back is the same thing that you're saying. It's like, no, this is your teammate. This is someone who's got your back, and you're going to hopefully feel safe with then having your manuscript, which actually leads me so perfectly into our next section. 'Cause I would love to ask you what types of questions that these people should come to you to ask. And then, as we're kind of talking about, like, oh, we're hopefully going to save these people from making some bad decisions, what are some red flags to those questions in the industry, focusing on the piece of like we should feel safe with someone having our manuscript. So I think if it isn't that, then already we're turning around. But what types of questions should they come to you prepared to ask?
Yeah. And I think so much of it is seeing that comfort level when you're talking with a prospective editor. I think one of the first things, especially because, as you said, the editing process can feel so like secretive, like what is happening when I hand it off to someone? Are they just judging me? Which we're not, or at least I'm not, is like asking them about their process. So I tend to be quite flexible. So I love to have that conversation with my clients at the beginning to think about, okay, if you're going to give me your manuscript and I hand it back to you, will there be a check-in later with copy editing? Often there's a cleanup rounds to help with areas that there were questions, get rid of some of the tracked changes once it's gone through both of us. With developmental editing, sometimes clients like 2 rounds so that we do major changes. And then when the dust clears, get in there and work with other issues and improve them. So understanding their process and how they work, and then also their deliverables. So I'm going to go developmental editing and then copy editing. For developmental editing, generally you get work within your manuscript and then an editorial letter. It can be very useful knowing how you learn and process information to have an understanding of how much is in the manuscript and how much is in the letter. Some developmental editors write very long letters that are detailed and have examples. Some like to keep their letters shorter and direct you to comments in the manuscript. So understanding that and what's going to work best for you early on can be really helpful. With copy editing and line editing, that includes copy editing, knowing if you're going to get a style sheet, which can be I think is an essential part of the copy editing process, because that's going to tell you all of the tracked style changes from your manuscript or judgment calls. So if a word's spelled 2 ways, it's always going to be spelled like this. In fiction, it might collect information on your characters, on your timeline, and things like that to help with consistency, which is fantastic if you're writing a series or for nonfiction, and you use specific terminology so that you're consistent in other publications, your website with that. It can guide your future writing, also help proofreaders, uh, designers, anyone that deals with the book later. It can be of help to them. So find out if you're going to get that. If you get an editorial letter that kind of discusses bigger changes during a copy or a line edit, just understanding what you're going to receive and that it matches your goals. So that would be a really big question. I would also say something that I think can be really helpful at that point is if you're on a discovery call, you've probably told the editor a bit about your manuscript. And I would ask, now that you know that, what are some things you anticipate looking for as you're doing my edit? And this kind of segues into red flags a little, because this is going to help you know how much the editor understands genre expectations, how much they understand your vision. I think one red flag is if the editor seems too rigid, right? If they just want to get in there and impose rules without considering your goals, your genre, your audience. And so that will help you see how they're already understanding what you're trying to do with your manuscript. I would also ask their AI policy. I think that's increasingly important. And that can be their policy for authors that they work with, right? Depending on your AI use, but also how or if they use AI, and to very much make sure that you're safeguarding your manuscript. And if you're okay with an editor using AI, that they have protections in place so that if they put any part of your manuscript into AI, it's not going to be used to train it.
So valuable. I did have a little follow-up question. I'm not sure if you're done, but while you were talking in the beginning, you were talking about the in-between time. So they're going to get it back, and then there maybe is going to be like this polishing time and then like a second round of cleanup. Do you have in your like in your normal working with your clients, do you have a timeline for that? Like when they get it back to when they have to give it back to you?
That's something that I tend to work out with the clients when I'm delivering, or actually once they've had a chance to look at what has been delivered. I think that deadlines can be very helpful, especially like on my ends. They help me plan my other work. But also, when you're receiving something for developmental editing, that can take a long time. And even copy editing or line editing, that initial opening of your manuscript can be a little intimidating. And it's one of those things that you're like, I'm just going to do it piece by piece and it'll be okay. But I've had authors receive it and freeze up a little and need a little time. And so I think having a set deadline in the early contract is a bit unfair, because I think the author should have a chance to look at what work is required. So what I try to do is, after they've had it for a little bit, then set a deadline that works for both of us, because I'll be bringing in other projects. And so I'll want to make sure that once they send it back to me, I'm able to have the time to return it in an effective way. I'm just not holding on to it while I finish something else.
Yeah, I think that that's perfect. And I think it also speaks to like the red flags in the industry, because if they're not telling you any kind of timeline, it's impossible for someone to say like, oh, I have this opening in my schedule for this manuscript and you can just take as long as you want, because you have to bring in new manuscripts to keep your job
Yes.
going. So no, I think that that's valuable. And I just wanted to speak to it because I think it was so long ago for myself, but I do remember having like a 3 week or 2 week turnaround on my first set. It was like, yes, you can take a few days to like
Mhm.
freeze up, because I did. I couldn't even open it. And then once I did, then I had a set time, and then to be respectful of the other person's calendar as well, because you want that valuable time. You want someone's fresh eyes, not like, oh, I'm working on these 3 other projects, but you just sent it, so I'm going to switch focus. So I think
Exactly.
it's such a good way to kind of suss out who you're working with too, to say like, okay, well, what are these timelines looking like? And I really love your approach. It feels very gentle and customer focused, because everybody is going to be different and everybody's going to need a little different comfort or support in that. So I love the way you tailor it to them. But keep in mind that stress works in a U shape, and we actually do have to have a little bit in order to function.
Yes.
So I
You've
love that.
gotta know that you're moving towards your goals, right? You've got to have that plan in place. But your mention of timelines and red flags does bring me to another one that I think is huge when you're speaking to an editor, and that's if their timeline seems surprisingly short, right? If it seems like how quickly and cheaply they can edit your material is shocking and exciting, it's probably because they're not going to do it as fully as you want. I like to think of editing in any of the forms as me taking the time to worry about things so that the author doesn't have to, right? Like, I'm trying to hyper focus on all of the little things. I'm trying to check for problems that the author may have overlooked. And that's time consuming. So if there's someone who's like, oh, yeah, I can get this back to you in 3 days, or I can do this for fractions of a cent per word, it likely means that they're not going to be doing everything you need them to do. It's a very time intensive project. And so your schedule that the editor shares with you, the fees should reflect that, because you want them to sit there with your manuscript and spend quality time with your words.
Ugh, I love that. It sounds like you have so much pride in your work. And it seems to me that you recognize the value of like, once you edit this book, someone's going to thank you in that book. And you're not going to want your name out there if you've got crap that's being published. So no, it sounds like you have a lot of pride in your work. And I just think that that is so beautiful. It's showing up so well.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I do have two more questions for you. One is well, first of all, everybody can find you in the directory, projectseedmoney.com/directory. Go down to the editor. She will be right there. But for those of you who are looking outside of that, where can everyone find you on social media and website?
So my website is ruddereditorial.com. And I suppose the best place right now to find me on social media is LinkedIn under my name, Melissa Rudder. I have to admit, I'm more of a lurker than a poster. I learned so much by reading what other people post on LinkedIn, but I think it almost fits editing that I like to observe and I like to people watch and I see what's happening. But I'd be happy to connect with people there as well.
That is beautiful. And I love the LinkedIn professional platform. And it's such a good way for you to even find like, I've even been reviewed on my LinkedIn profile. I didn't even know you could do that, but like, it's a good way to see like, who are they connected to? What does their network look like? And also location, things like that. Just a really nice little, for you saying you're a lurker, other people who are listening can go and lurk on your profile for LinkedIn and also
Exactly.
see so much. Yeah. Okay, one last question. My audience is female authors. They're on the fence. They need a little bit of encouragement to just keep going, get that first book out there. And I wonder if you can just kind of help inspire my audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. So last week, I went to CVS with my son to get a prescription. And we were picking up the prescription, and the pharmacist was suddenly like to my son, "Did you write us a note after we gave you a shot?" And he had the first round of COVID shots. He was terrified of shots. And after his second shot, was so proud of himself that he made it, that he wrote a little note to thank the pharmacist. And the pharmacist said, like, knew his name. And that was how she made the connection. And she said, "It's been up in the back of in our back room since then. And that's 5 years." And it was, I knew that this was coming up, and I immediately thought of this moment or the possibility of talking to you because he created something with words. And the pharmacist said it reminds us of what we do or why we do what we do. And I think all of those authors that have the potential to create something to connect with others with their words, to remind people of why they do what they do, or help them see things from a new perspective, or give them hope, or help escape this world by reading an exciting story. That's such a power. And right, my son could have been like, "Oh no, that's a silly idea. I'm not going to do that." And we do things like that all the time. But he made the choice, and then I drove over there to deliver it. And it still makes a difference 5 years later. And your books can do that as well in a far greater way. And I just think that's such a gift. And if you have the drive to do that, I think it would be such a loss if you didn't, because someone might, in their heart, that might be put up to remind them of why they do what they do.
Wow, that is so beautiful, Melissa. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that story about your son. And thank you for spending some time with me today and demystifying this whole editing process and helping me understand these terms a little bit more too, because it's a confusing world. So
It
thank you
is.
so much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. It's fun talking to you.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode for Project Seed Money. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And I will see you with another interview next week. Bye.